Come on in, Facebook. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Amen. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Well. Another week, another time, another place. We thank God for another week that God has given us. And so all of you, my brothers and sisters all over the world, our Facebook family, this is your host, Apostle Dr. Sylvester Paul Brinson III, the host of the Brinson Connection, coming to you live from our web. And we're so excited for you, our Facebook family, those of you that are watching us now live, those of you that are tuned into us during another time of the day or whatever day this may be that you're watching this program or this teaching, those of you that are looking or watching us through YouTube or Twitter. We thank God for you as always. And so we are grateful for him that is able to keep us and bring us strength in the time of our distress. So we share with you again this week, and we are grateful. So we want you to come on in. Come on in, Facebook, give you time to get the notification and come on into the Brinson Connection. Well, as always, we come to you with our Sunday school lesson for this week. I don't want to call it Sunday school lesson, our church school lesson, or our lesson for this week, as we are studying together from the International Sunday School Lesson series. And this series, we're in the new quarter. And this quarter, we've been talking about and looking at God and who he is and our relationship with Jesus Christ, and looking for the hope that God gives us in the midst of our challenges, in the midst of our situations of life. There is a certain kind of hope that God wants us to have in our seasons of life and living. And so as we kicked off last week with not being anxious, not worrying. Why worry? Why worry? Why worry when God is in control? Why should you worry? Worry about what? A lot of us, we just worry. And so that was the story and the class from last week about worrying. This week, we're dealing with anxiety. We're being the anxiety of not worry, but the anxiety of being afraid. Why are you afraid? That's our lesson for today. Let us read it from our scriptures. I want to challenge you and share with you. So can we just read it? I want to read it from our scriptures today. Our basic lessons come from Matthew chapter 8 and verse 23 through 27. Matthew chapter 8, verse 23 to 27. Hear the reading. And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him. And behold, there came a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with water, but he was asleep. And his disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he said unto them, Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. But the men marveled, saying, What manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea, they obey him? That's our lead verse coming from Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 into 27. This story is also found in what we call the Synoptic Gospels. So it's again in chapter and Mark and in the book of Luke. So Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they cover the same story. If we read the whole story from all three passages, we get a better understanding of the whole story. So Matthew chapter 8, verse 23 through 27, Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41, and Luke chapter 8, verses 22 through 25. So we read all three of those stories, we find out that, number one, Jesus gets into a boat. We find out it was on a particular day in the evening. He says to his disciples, let us go over to the other side. after he had been teaching all day. I wanted to get some rest. Let's go over to the other side. And also we find out that we add the gospel of Mark and Luke to the story. We find out that not only did Jesus get in a ship or the boat with his disciples, that other small boats followed them. There was what we say an entourage of boats. So it was Jesus and his disciples in one boat, or the ship, boat, and then smaller ships or smaller boats of some of his disciples. They also went with him. So we see Jesus in a boat with his disciples, and some of his disciples is following him in smaller boats. Okay, so that's kind of the story. And all the way there, on their way over on the other side, suddenly as they get out there, that there becomes a storm. The wind comes, and the wind and storm comes, and the boat start taking on water. Jesus is sleeping on a pillow, on a cushion at the helm of the boat, or the stern, in the stern of the boat, which the stern of the boat would be the back part of the boat. So the back part of the boat, Jesus is there, and he falls asleep on a pillow while the boat is in a storm. Now, the disciples, Peter, James, and John, and Andrew, and some of them, they were expert fishermen. So they knew about the lake and the river, the seas. They knew about how wind and rain comes, and they know about storms. So they wasn't like people that were novices when it came down to water and swimming and all of that kind of thing. So they were professional fishermen, which means they had to know how to swim, and they had to know how to navigate. But in this process, we find out that whatever the storm was and however great the storm was, these fishermen who were disciples and others, they were concerned and afraid based upon the storm that this was a bad storm. And to the point that they felt that if they didn't do anything about it, that they were going to perish. So they wake Jesus up. Jesus is asleep. How is Jesus asleep during the storm? During the crises of a storm, Jesus is sleeping on the back of the boat, not in the down in the boat, in the back of the boat, in the stern of the boat. If you read the story, all three scriptures, it says, number one, Jesus says, let's go and get in the boat, go on the side. Jesus had been teaching and preaching and healing the sick and working miracles all day. All right, Brother Williams? So he was doing that. And so he said, come on, let's go to the other side. What we see here is the humanity of Jesus saying, look, it's time for a break. Wow. All day, when you preach and you teach and you in ministry, that takes out of you. It takes out of you. And so sometime we need to understand that we need sometime a break. We just need a break. We need a break from the crowds. We need a break from people that's expecting so much of us. So Jesus is teaching his disciples, come on now, let's go get a break. And his main disciples are with him alone in the boat, and smaller boats follow. So we would say that we understood that Jesus had more than just 12 disciples. When he talked about his disciples, from time to time he'll say, and he said unto his disciples, and he said unto the 12. So out of all of his disciples, he selected 12 to become his apostles. 12 was selected out of his disciple grouping to become apostles. So sometime when it talks about Jesus and his disciples, and then sometime you see it, Jesus and the 12 disciples. So sometime the disciples is referring to just him and the 12. Sometimes it's referring to him and the 12 plus others who were his disciples. According to history, he had over about 300 or more disciples outside of just the 12 who were his apostles. So here they were, Jesus and his disciples in a boat with smaller boats following him. You get the scenario? Today we had a great time in the Sunday school lesson. Those of you that are not busy, wow, you need to join us every Wednesday from 10:30 to 12 with all of our student scholars who call in free conferencing lesson.com and get into the lesson. And so one of the things that was discussed in the lesson today from different angles, we were looking at it. What about the fact that, Dr. Sledge, God bless you. What about the fact that in the Mark passage, it says that Jesus got in the boat with his disciples with smaller boats following, other boats following. So, wow, I got to thinking. I said, wait a minute now. So if Jesus is in the boat, on the stern of the boat, sleep on a pillow in the midst of a storm, and the disciples, who are expert fishermen, is upset and concerned about this crisis of a storm that's overtaking them in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. And they're waking up Jesus saying, don't you care, Master, Master? Why you sleep? Are you care that we perish? I said to myself, wow. So what was going on in the other boats? The other disciples and others that followed them to the other side, when Jesus said to all of them, let us go over to the other side, Jesus get in a particular boat with his disciples, and his other disciples and others are following him over to the other side. What's going on with them in their boat? Because they're on the same sea in the same storm. And that's something to think about. I know. Some of you all, you've been in Sunday school and church school. You've heard the sermon preached. You've heard about Jesus. And he stood up and said, peace be still. But I want you to look at the narrative in the broader standpoint, because if we have Matthew, Mark, and Luke telling the story, and we put together the bits and pieces from each of the story, we will have to say that Jesus on the ship or on the boat with his disciples, with other boats following them, meaning that the other boats that followed them was caught up in the same storm. The same storm, Sledge, the same storm, Sister Ann, the same storm, others with you in the same storm, but Jesus is on your boat. Jesus is with you on your boat. Others are following Jesus that's in your boat, but they're following Jesus because Jesus said to all of them, let us go over onto the other side. But there's a storm now in the midst of the assignment, in the midst of Jesus' statement, let us go over on the other side, while I am in process of going over, while I am in the process of obeying, while I'm in the process of doing his will, while I'm in the process of the journey of obeying and satisfied with Jesus on the boat. Jesus, his presence, who he is, and his power is on my boat, because he said, let us go on the other side. But there's a storm now, and the winds and the waves is going, and my expertise, my scientific understanding of things, the understanding of nature as I understand it through my professionalism as a fisherman who study and understand wind and water and waves and boat structures, says that this is not good, that this boat that I understand, this boat, which I'm a specialist in the boat and fishing, and we are on, it's not good, that where we at right now, it's most likely that if there's nothing that's changed, we're going to die. We're going to sink. We're going to perish. Don't you care, God? Look, but hey, I know what you said. I know where you want me to go. But right now, what I'm in, right now, what I see, right now, what I'm experiencing, according to my understanding, this is not going to work right now unless there's an intervention. There's got to be an intervention. There's got to be an intervention. So they wake Jesus up. And he gets up and he rebukes the wind and the waves and the sea, and it become calm. And he says, O ye of little faith. O ye of little faith. So now we need to talk about that. We need to look at what is it that we're missing in this process. Jesus says, O ye of little faith. One text says, O ye of little faith. Some say, O ye of no faith, not little faith. Where is your faith? Where is your faith? Your little faith, whatever. I have faith enough to believe that if I call on Jesus, he will come to my rescue. But some kind of way within that faith of me believing that, I have a question on two issues that I find in the text. Number one, the issue was in the text is what happens to the disciples' understanding of Jesus and who he is, that he is with them. And yet they have this feeling, this emotional feeling, this soulish mind, will, and emotion, this soulish feeling that some kind of way with Jesus on the boat with them, that they were going to perish. With Jesus on the boat with them, that this was not good. Even though Jesus was on the boat and he was asleep, but yet, you know, this is not good. What is that about faith to understand if you call on Jesus, but yet at the same time, Jesus is with you. The Holy Spirit is in you, with you, in you, but yet there's certain crises and certain moments of crises that arise in our lives, even with the fact that we know Jesus is right there with us. There is a question of the assignment. Are we going to make it to where Jesus is telling us to go? Let us go over on the other side. And so once he got up and rebuked the wind and the waves and all of that, everything became calm. They was like, wow, what kind of Jesus is this? What kind of man is this that even the winds and the seas obey him? They marvel. Wait a minute. So you telling me that somehow Jesus is on your boat and all that Jesus is, all of his teachings, you're a disciple, you have followed him, you had just came off of an evangelistic tour, you just come off a place where he was teaching and preaching, he was healing the sick and speaking to the devils, and they were coming out, and now we're in this situation that we call a crisis in the sea. And now we feel like, well, you know, it's over. We're getting ready to perish. This thing is really serious. Now, some of y'all can say, oh, I see, you just got to have faith. Branson, no, see, they just have faith. No. See, what we need to understand in the reality of our humanness, that sometimes we determine that there's certain crises, situations in our lives and circumstances that come upon us that we feel, based upon our experiences, our knowledge, our know-how, that these crises, situations, or circumstances are so overwhelming that predicated on what we know, it's not going to work. 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 I don't care what I've seen. I don't care what I know in the past. Somebody said, well, you know, if you need to trust God about this. If he did this for you now, he could do this for you again. But sometimes our mind do not focus on, if he did it to me, he'll do it again. No, because the again principle sometimes does not matter, because this new crisis, this new storm is unlike the other storm I was in. In fact, the dynamics are different, the circumstances are different, and from what I see, my response is different. And this is a greater issue than the last issue. So I cannot grab faith from yesterday and move for my today, because what I see before me today is new, brand new, and it's greater than what was yesterday. So Jesus is in the ship. He's asleep on the pillow. The waves, the wind, and the storm is ever present with them. And yet they have this overwhelming sense that they're going to perish. The boat is being rocked back and forth. The waves. It's easy for you to say what you got to say about people on a rocky boat, on a rocky trip, on a rocky lifestyle, and you're not there. Oh, how we will Evaluate other people's and other people's storms, or see if you would trust God more. See if you you just don't. Yeah, no. These were Jesus handpicked inner circle leaders. And sometimes you can be an inner circle leader in a moment of crisis, and also then in the moment of crisis as a leader close on the inside. You have a moment of crisis that questions your relationship with the master, because somehow, because of the situation, circumstances, you feel with the presence of the master right there, right with you, that this is rough. And I don't think he cares, even though I know he's with me, but this is a hard one. And so Jesus gets up and said, oh, ye of little faith. Oh, ye of little faith. Little faith meaning what? You had faith to believe that I was capable. You had faith to believe that you could call on me, but did you have faith enough to know that if I said two situations ought to gave you solace, two situations ought to granted you some peace, two situations could have had you to calm down. One situation was I made a statement. My statement, I sent my word will not return unto me void. My statement was, let us go over to the other side. Now, let's pause on that one for a minute and break it down a little bit. Let us go over to the other side. The promise was that we were going to make it to the other side. What's up for discussion is what takes place in the interim between the now of God speaking and the future of it coming to pass. What is the interim? What is the interim? Jesus says, here we are. Let's get in the boat. We're in the boat. Let's go over on the other side. So I'm trusting in the fact that we're getting ready, that we're going to launch out. So we've launched the ministry. We've launched out into the direction that God has already predetermined. We know where we're going because we have launched in the direction of our assignment. But what we don't know is the unknown of the things that may transpire between the launch and the fulfillment of our destiny assignment, the other side. So we know that somehow Jesus said, let us go over to the other side. And so I'm providing the transportation to carry him to be with us while we are going over to the other side. And there's some other people that are going to follow us in their boats as well to the other side, because the anticipation is we launch, we arrive. We launch, we arrive. We begin and we get to a destiny. We begin and we get a goal objective completed. But in the midst of the transportation, there is a transition that is transforming. A storm, unexpected storm. Now, those of us who have been to the Holy Land know, and those of us who have studied the narratives know the history of the area, because the Sea of Galilee sits between three sides of mountains. And so there are mountains on three sides of the Sea of Galilee, so it presents a valley. So from time to time, the wind will raise itself up and run through circulation, will run through the mountains, and the wind from off the mountains coming into the sea creates a storm. And sometime, according to those persons that study in those areas, they say that sometime in the middle, the sun could be shining, everything will be pleasant. And overnight, bam, within a minute or two, it will get dark and there will be a storm on the sea, and the waves be tossed high and without a notice. The weather report said all is well. You can make it from here to there. The sun is going to be shining, everything. You know how we do. We don't like to make a move until we can see that, oh yeah, it's going to be all right. I did my research. I studied all this, and based upon my study and based on what I see, I can do this. I can do this. Oh yeah, this is going to be a piece of cake. Jesus is with me too. There's a songwriter that says, if Jesus is with me, I will go anywhere. It's evident to me wherever I be that he is there. I count it a privilege to know that his cross I will bear, because if Jesus go with me, I'll go anywhere. But yes, that song is there. Jesus go with me, I'll go anywhere. But on the trip, there's a trip. Even in the Old Testament, God said, Moses, I'm going with you. God is with Moses through the Red Sea. But God said, come on, Moses, let's go out of Egypt. Come on, they got out of Egypt. But they got to the Red Sea, crises. God, where are you? What? God said, well, you crying to me? What's in your hand? What's in your hand? You are in a crisis. You at your Red Sea, or you are in the middle of your assignment, and a storm comes up unexpectedly, and you are tossed to and fro by decisions that have to be made, and the waves of decision in life is so overwhelming that you got to call out. Now, wait a minute. Let's go back now. Let's put this thing together, because within the story, it wasn't just one disciple. Jesus and his disciples, plural, his disciples got on the ship. And not only his disciples of the 12 or the smaller, the inner group disciples, smaller ships of boats was in this entourage. So now there's a wind and a storm that is attacking the boat that Jesus is in and the boats that are following Jesus. And like I said before, I just was kind of, intrigued to, if I could just be on some of them other boats to see what was the feeling of the others on those other boats who were caught up in the same storm that the disciples that was with Jesus was in. And if the disciples that was with Jesus was augmented by despair and frustration and anxiety with Jesus sleep on the boat, what was the others' response when Jesus was not in their boat, but their eye was on the boat that Jesus was in? So there's some dynamics. So sometimes we have a reaction with Jesus symbolically on our boat. Then there's another level of relationship where we trust the Jesus in another person. We say that Jesus in me loves the Jesus in you. So easy to be loved. So we trust Brother Melvin Williams, the Jesus in others, and we can look over and we see Jesus in the boat. So we will take our boat to follow Jesus because we know that Jesus is in our midst and he's a part of the group. So this is a group event. All of us as a group, we're taking a rest period. We're going on the other side. Jesus, you've been teaching and preaching and training, and we've been doing a lot of altar work and healing the sick and stuff. I remember when I was a young ministry, and I was one of the altar workers with our Apostle Richard D. Hinton. And some of you that know how some of our evangelists back in those days that a healing deliverance ministry, you had to stay prayed up because some of them devils and spirits would come out of people and go into you, but you had to be. So they would just go down the aisle, laying hands on people. People would be falling out here and there, and you got to catch folk and move them out the way, and and make room for the apostle or the evangelist to get to the people, stand behind a person, and they will fall. You catch them. By the time you catch one that was falling, the preacher was over at another person. If you didn't have enough people, you had to let that one go real quick and get to the next one or the next one behind it. And some of the person that was standing there to catch, they get knocked out on the power along with the other. And so by the time that service is over, you about as tired as the preacher or worse. You know, we would leave some of the services, but with Pastor Hinton, we'd be like, man, he worked us the night, boy. Our arms be sore, you know, we be tired and go home and get extra sleep. Because what happened? Well, I was with Pastor and I was a part of the altar team tonight. These folk getting happy. Yeah, have you ever tried to hold a happy, hollering, screaming, kicking person that been delivered and set free and get out the way and pave the way? Oh, that's some of you all are still in those kind of experiences today. You know, I know even though with the COVID situation, some of you all not, but they are those who can remember those altar moments when you was an altar worker or intercessor and you worked with those who had gifts of healing, deliverance, how you work just as hard or harder, you know, because that person that had the anointing gift, your anointing gift was to be supportive. So get this, the disciples, Jesus' disciples, they had to what? Help and manage the crowd. The crowd was there. The crowd would press upon them. The crowd was the lame, the blind, the halt, the withered. You know, and then, you know, when you're in a crowd, you get all kind of attitudes. Y'all know that. Y'all know. Some of y'all that specialize as ushers and armor bearers and adjutants to lead. Y'all know, you know what I'm talking about. Boy, people can get an attitude. Folk can get an attitude in the midst of their shout. In the midst of their singing, they can get you told and get you, man, come on, let's, Lord, hey. So here the disciples, Jesus said, come on, all y'all. Everybody's with me, my team. Let's go on the other side. We need to go get some rest. Wow. And so Jesus, you know, he on the boat, you know, and he falls asleep. Give me a pillow. I mean, he ain't just light napping. He ain't like napkin. He ain't napping lightly. He's got a pillow. He's on the backside at the stern. The stern of the boat is the back part of the boat. He's on the back part of the boat, sleep. And the disciples is fighting for what they think is their life because they're in a storm. How does it feel sometime when you feel like you are doing your assignment? We're going over on the other side and we have special cargo. We have Jesus. We feel we have his anointing. We know his presence is with us. And all of a sudden you are met by a storm. And this storm is just not any storm. This storm comes to challenge your capability of survival, predicated upon your experiences and who you are and what you know. You're not a novice in these kinds of things of what you are and what you know, but there is a storm. There is a storm that even though Jesus is present with you in the boat, there is a kind of a storm that make you wonder, that brings on fearfulness. Our lesson today is, why are you fearful? Why are you fearful? There's a storm that comes. There are storm or crisis storms that happens to us, that we find ourselves in, even though we know that God is with us, that Christ is with us. Not only do we can see him with us, we can feel him with us. It's tangible that he is there with us. And there's a storm. And somehow, there's a sense by some of us that he is with us in the storm. But we don't hear nothing. He's asleep, as it were. He is with us in the storm. But we need him to participate while the storm is raging. And sometimes we're not able to separate the fact that his presence with us in the storm, his presence is going to protect him and us as long as he is staying with us in the storm, no matter how much water our ship takes on, no matter how much, according to my knowledge and understanding of nature and water and wind, because of my profession, no matter how, because of my training, I know certain things, because of my leadership training, because of who I am, because I'm a scholar, because of, no matter what that is, we sometimes still feel that we need to cry out to Jesus, which is there with us, because for us, he is asleep. And because he is asleep, his sleep may be silence. His sleep may not be not engaging us in a dialogue, because by Jesus being asleep in the ship on a pillow, disciples didn't have no dialogue. They can say, hey, Jesus, how you doing? You see all this water? He said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about the water. Well, Jesus was with us, but we didn't hear him coaching us. Jesus, you see how dark it's getting? No, don't worry about it. I'm with you. Jesus, do you hear that wind? Yeah, I hear it. So what's the problem? Sometimes we need other people around us to say, do you hear what I hear? And one of the most challenging parts is other folks say, yeah, I hear what you hear. I see what you see. And based upon how you feel, I feel the same way. I don't know about this. There's a corporate response to storms. Storms of life. Storms of life, not only is there an individual storm or an individual reaction to storms of life, storms in ministry, there is a corporate response. And sometimes that corporate response, it's wild. It's more devastating, because you're not the only one that feel this way. You're not the only one that see it this way. You're not the only one that is going through these emotional feelings of rejection and oppression and anxiety and fear. There's a group, a team of people just like you, on the same boat with you, going through the same experiences, feeling the same way. And because of you and your leadership and your proximity to Jesus, there are others who understand the words of Jesus. They got a rhema from God, and they were with you when you together with them heard what God said. And they are on their boat following you in your boat, where Jesus is in the boat with you. Wow. So what are they saying? So it's complicated now, because Jesus is in the boat with you, but yet he's asleep, but yet he's in the boat. And yet there are other boats following your boat. So you should be an example to the boats that are surrounding and following you, with Jesus in the boats, and those in the boats, in the smaller boats, are trusting your boat with Jesus in the boat. And yet at the same time, I'm wondering, as they are watching your boat with Jesus in the boat, and their boat is going through the same things that you're going through, but their boat is smaller than the boat you're in, and probably got less people in that ministry than you have in your big ministry. And yet we all tripping together. Wow. What is the symbolism of leadership and the symbolism of expectation? And what then becomes the challenge of fear? What is the great thing? One of the presidents says, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And somebody said fear is false, F, evidence, E, appearing, A, R, real, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Well, some of this evidence wasn't false. It wasn't false that the storm was on the sea. That was real. It wasn't appearing real. There was a storm. The winds and the waves was battling the ship, and the ship was taking on water. And the nature of what was ever happening in the storm, professional men that were fishermen, that was not afraid of the wind, because they'd been out fishing in the rain and storm, felt that this particular storm was unique enough that they had to make a call to Jesus and wake him up, because had he not stepped in, they were feeling that they were going to perish. They didn't say, oh, excuse me, Jesus, could you wake up? We want to show you something. Jesus, I know you had a hard day today, but could you, hey, man, Jesus, could you wake up? No, 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 Master. Hey, Jesus, don't you care that we perish? Wake up. Look at what's happening. Look at what we're going through. And sometimes we know that God is with us and Jesus is with us, but we have to say, Jesus, can't you wake up? Will you say something? I need you to be involved in what I'm going through. It's a lot of noise. There's a lot of storm. It's a lot of, there's no calm here. I'm afraid. Jesus gets up. He checks, rebukes the wind and waves. Great calm comes over the place. It was like, wow, that's deep. That's deep. Well, it was deep all the time. So, O ye of little faith, why did you have fear? Why did you fear when you know I was on your team? Why did you fear when you know that I was on your team, that lo, I'm with you, and I was with you on the trip? But you was tripping with me. You was tripping, as they say, you was tripping on the trip with me on your trip, tripping while I'm with you at the trip. Some of us, we're tripping right now, and Jesus says, I'm with you on your trip, but in your trip, you got some storms happening right now, and the storms are so overpowering that the reasoning of surviving this storm is so great that you are tripping on your trip with the Master with you, his presence with you. But somehow, even though his presence is with you, you have a sense that he's not there. Because if he was there, there would be some dialogue. I don't hear nothing from Jesus. We're in this storm. It's dark. The wind is blowing. Frustration is all over the place. And I know he's with us, but I don't hear nothing. I know you with me, but you're not responding to me. Jesus, what? You not only what? He's with me. He's on the same boat with me. He's in the same storm I'm in. But he sleep. Oh, well, then if he sleep, I gotta wake him up. I mean, how many of us feel like, Jesus don't really understand what I'm going through. I need to wake him up. I need to have a little talk with Jesus. That's the songwriter. So let us have a little talk with Jesus, and we'll tell him all about our problems. He will hear our faintest cry, and he'll answer by and by. Feel a little prayer will turn in, and we'll know the fire is burning. Have a little talk with Jesus makes it right. Boom. They needed to have a little talk with Jesus in the midst of a storm when he was already with them on the boat in the storm with a directive that we were all on our way to the other side. So if God gives you a directive to make a move in your ministries of some things that you've got to do, and you know that he's given it to you to be accomplished in it, in the midst of the transportation movement from one point to the other point of your assignment, there is the unknown of the Sea of Galilee that comes with all of its waves, the waves and the high winds and the darkness of everything, to challenge the soul of who you are, to put your spirit in question of your assignment. Do you care that we perish? Do you care that we perish? Deborah Starks, do you care? Professor Nash Schaefer, I'm in the midst of a storm, but I'm doing your will. You said you in my boat. I'm doing what you assigned me. We on our way to the other side, but we got to navigate the Sea of Galilee, and the Sea of Galilee is unpredictable. Who is it that I am talking to that you know that you have an assignment to begin a process of movement, of transportation over an unpredictable situation, but the promise is the other side. Elder Sandra Yancey, my spiritual daughter. So the promise is let us launch from this position and go over to the other side. But on the way to the other side is an unpredictable sea called Galilee, because we never know when the storm gonna break out. AccuWeather can never determine what may happen instantly. I remember when I went to the Holy Land and we was on the tour, and so we got on the boat and we went out into the middle of the Sea of Galilee, and they stopped. And the person, the tour guide, said the boat, first of all, the boat that you're on was about the same size as the boat that Jesus was on with his disciples. And now you're in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. Now I want you to look around the Sea of Galilee. You see there are three sides of mountains, and there's no land around you in the middle. Now just suppose with me, all of a sudden there's a cloud that comes over, the wind start blowing, the sun peeks out the clouds, it gets dark, and there's a storm, and you in the middle, and you was not prepared. You was not prepared. Now see, it's a difference to know that you're going into a storm. Because see, if you know you're going into the storm, you can sort of like, prepare for the storm. Even though you don't like the storm, you can say, well, this is going to be a storm. I know God told me to launch this ministry. I'm launching to go over to the other side. There's a place that he wants me to be at. There's a place he wants me to get from point A to point B. And he said, let us go. So he is saying to me, let us go. And I am with you always. And so he is with me on my trip. He is in the same boat with me, and we launch. But there's a possibility of some unpredictability issues that will arise. And the unpredictableness of the Sea of Galilee is so magnanimous in its varies of unpredictions that there can be some storms that we were never prepared for nor trained for. Who's prepared and trained for a storm? Or some of us are, because, some of us, we like the Negro spiritual that says, when the storms of life are raging, stand by me. When it feels like I'm almost going, thou who rulest, stand by me. Now, there are certain storms that we request God to stand by us. And Jesus said, I'm already here. No. So no. We don't mean that. We don't mean stand by us and your presence is with us. We need dialogue. We need intervention. We need conversation. What happens when you are in the midst of a storm, Latrice, and you have a sense that God is with you, but for some reason, God is silent and you need some conversation? You know how it is, you in some stuff to say something, talk to me, keep me posted, say something, encourage me. I need you to talk, pat me on the back, shake my hand, hold my hand, let me know. No, God said, I'm with you. You're saying, yeah, but could you hold my hand? Walk with me, Lord, walk with me. Walk with me, Lord, walk with me all along this tedious journey. I want Jesus to walk with me. Well, yeah, but hold my hand, Lord, hold my hand. Yeah, now you want him to hold you, but I thought, I want him to hold his hand. No, be my guide. You want him to be your guide. You want to have some sense of recognition that that he leading the way, because he told you to let's go on the other side now, but you need some extracurricular understanding that he's still in charge, and what he's saying to you, your faith should be in charge. If I say let us go over to the other side, then no matter what goes on in the middle or the midst of us making it to the other side, somehow your faith should let us know, and and your people know, that no matter what's going on, the situation or the circumstances, you're going to arrive on the other side. But isn't it so, my brothers and sisters, that we get caught up in the middle passage of getting to the other side? We lose, we get challenged in the getting to the other side. The losing, the understanding of the unknown from leaving the launch to go where he tells us to go, with him on our ship with us, but asleep, as it were, quietly sleep. There's no conversation. So then when say Jesus kept waking up, hey, brothers, how's it doing? Now, the other thing is also, the other thing was, as I talked to our Sunday school, the lesson group today, I say, check this out. It was not a one-person experience. It was a corporate experience. Get a group together. It's challenging enough by yourself or one or two people to be in a crisis, to be in a storm, because you got to navigate your emotions and the emotions of your other. But now you got a group of people in the storm. And then you got the group of people all bringing to the table their understanding how to navigate the storm, and the storm is getting worse. And not only do you have a group of people on the same boat with you trying to navigate a storm, you got a group of people following you in smaller boats trying to navigate the same storm, but depending upon you because they're following you, the big boat. Wow. Ministry is like that, isn't it, sometimes? Life is like that, isn't it, sometimes? And so it's so easy for us in the midst of our storm crises to be afraid. The spirit of fear captivates us, even though we have the challenge and commitment that Jesus says, let us go on the other side. He is not like Trump and the people. Trump said, you all got to be strong now, and I'm gonna go with you. You all walk on down to that Capitol, and you do what you got to do. And Trump went back in his office and then meet them down at the Capitol. How many Trumps of life have told you, I'm with you, I got you. Go ahead and get you all stirred up to go and be a part of something, and you find out they ain't even there. Pat, Patricia, they got you out there and they left you. So, but y'all left me hanging. You threw me under the bus. I know I'm with you. You ain't saying nothing. If you with me, say something. If you with me, encourage me. If you with me, push me. Sometimes we have to have faith enough to know whether we are pushed or encouraged, or somebody is saying something, or we got a cheerleader squad or not. No cheerleader squad. We're with the group. That the group that we're with must have an understanding that there is a commitment and a direction and a commission and a command and a suggestion. Let us go over to the other side. So whatever happens in the interim, us, excuse my language, us is going to make it to the other side. Oh, my. Oh, my, the experience is, what about the middle passage? How do we make it between the launch and the arrival? Between the launch and the arrival is a sea that's unpredictable. Between the launch and the arrival are circumstances and situations that we don't plan for. Between the launch and the arrival are situations and things and relationships. Because of the things and circumstances that happen, relationships, the sociological relational dynamic and the psychological individual mindsets of who's with you on the trip, and the dynamics of what happens because of the storm or the crisis on the trip in the middle passage from the launch to the arrival puts us in a predicament sometimes where we know that Jesus is on the ship, but Jesus is asleep on the ship, and we got to wake Jesus is up Jesus got to be awakened out of his sleep, because somehow in the midst of his teachings, in the midst of his trainings, in the midst of our observation, we, along with those others, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I said we, because he said, let us go over the other side. So this was a corporate group, discipleship group of people, of inner circle people that had experienced Jesus, his teachings, his miracles. So you mean I can have an experience with God, I can have an experience with Jesus, see his miracles, understand them, but some kind of way I can watch his miracles, see his miracles, marvel at his miracles, understand his miracles, but I can't do none of the miracles. I can't do, why can't we cast them out? Because there's some these kinds that in order to do that, you got to qualify to do what Jesus did. You got to qualify not only to be in his presence, to see what he does, but you got to qualify to carry his presence, to become him, so that the faith of you seeing and understanding who he is and his teachings, you have taken it on and it becomes a part of you. And now you can activate within you the teachings and the experiences that you have seen and beheld while with him in his activity. Or do we have a form of God and deny the power? Are we so religious that we can't activate the Jesus principle in us? Are we so pietistic that when the storms of life comes, we have to go into our monastery and put on our monk's uniform and say certain prayers because we got to call on him. We got to go see what Jesus say now. Can we activate? Can we plan? Can we strategize in the midst of the storm and strategize a route in the storm, through the storm, to navigate the storm without feeling like we're overwhelmed when the power and the presence of Jesus is with us, without feeling that the power and the presence of Jesus is with us, but he's asleep. And we have to have dialogue. We need him to wake up. We need him to see what we're doing. We need him to hear what we're hearing. We need him to be cognizant of the realities that we find ourselves in. But if he's asleep, he can't do it. Where are we now? How do you see and understand life? What is God saying to you? At the same time, the dubious distinction that we get out of the lesson is there's a need to rest. You, after all your praying and preaching and teaching and doing miracles, can you and your team pause to lunch, to go to the other side for R&R? And it's during the time where you are on your way to relaxation and holidays, that a crisis and a storm, unpredictable, arises. Is at the moment when you feel most vulnerable and tired by life and its ministry, that you have said, I need to get away to do more reflection with my team and my group. We need a retreat. We need to go get some rest, that we become overwhelmed with a unpredictable. And we feel and find and think that, well, Jesus is asleep because he been out there too. So where is your faith? Well, as we close today's lesson, I just wanted to give you some pointers that hopefully you can take some of the things that I raised and put it into your sermons, put it into your teachings, Sister Kimberly and others, Sister Deborah, Elder Yancey. Where are you on the journey of the launch to the arrival of the other side? What is it that's unpredictable, Evangelist Brenda Smith? What is that is unpredictable, not only for you, but people that are with you? Because the unpredictable situation of the chaos on the sea, of the storm on the sea, was just not Peter's response or John's response. It was his disciples that was on the boat with Jesus, and also the disciples of those who followed him in the smaller boats, according to Mark chapter. Go back and read Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the story. Go back for those who tuned in late. Matthew chapter 28, verses 23 and 27 is our story lesson for today. And then read Mark chapter 4, 35 to 41. And then read Luke chapter 8, verses 22 to 25. Take a look at that, Dr. House. And the question is, are you afraid? Jesus is on the boat with you. Are you afraid? Why are you afraid? Oh, ye of little faith, why are you afraid when the person that's in charge is with you? Why are you afraid? So as we leave this lesson, this has been your host, Apostle Dr. Sylvester Paul Brinson III, the Dean and host of the Brinson Connection, that's with you every Wednesday on Facebook Live from 2 to 3. Those of you that are watching me now, that may be watching me later, my friends on Twitter, and those of you that want to catch this on my timeline, or you can go to YouTube, youtube.com, and type in Dr. Sylvester Brinson III and get over 150 of our teachings, and also pick up this teaching. We will be adding this teaching to our list. Why are you afraid? Why are you afraid? That's going to be the question. Why are you afraid? And so until next time, may the God of peace bring peace to your storm. May the God of peace calm the elements of the unexpected. May you find strength and calm in your journey, because Jesus says to you, let us go over to the other side. There's another side to your ministry. There's another side to your assignment. There's a time for you to come away. There's some things that you must do while on your assignment of ministry, of preaching and teaching and having miracles. There's another side that you got to get away from and come over. But in the middle of that, sometimes there's a storm crisis that is interim to your transition to the other side. While in transportation from your launch to your other side, there's a transition of a storm that comes into your environment, along with you and your people that you're with, that not only get you, but the people you're with and the people that follow you, a question that you must raise. Master, do you care about us? And God's response is, why are you afraid? After he answers our prayer and after he quells the storm, he will come, and after he handles the thing, he goes back in reflective mode and say, hey, oh, you little faith, you know I'm with you. You say I'm sovereign. You say I'm in control. Can you trust me? Can you trust the process of the storm? Can you navigate the storm knowing that you're going to reach the other side after the launch? Can you have faith enough to believe that all is well? And so it is. Till next time, God's blessings be with you.